Today on Timeout Coaching, we have a start of a series of special roundtable podcasts. Our focus today is on Birmingham coaches and coaching, and I have four legends of coaching from the city and the region. Coach Pete Mintoft, Coach Paul Douglas, Coach Clive Allen, and Coach Simon Fisher. I'd like to welcome you all to the Timeout Coaching podcast.
Yeah, what's up, too?
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
So this is our first time of doing this, and I want to really keep going and get everything moving. But first of all, we got to find out about you. First in a shortish way, talk about how you got involved in the game, and how that because obviously we've got a couple of players here, and obviously Pete has been there from the start. So let's just get everyone talking about firstly their how they got involved in the game and where that actually took them as well. So Pete, you can start off with.
Okay, so schools had a house system, and so I'm going through the school. I wasn't particularly athletic. Halfway through the school, the house captain comes up and says, we're short of somebody for the basketball team. Oh, really? Okay. What's basketball? And kind of thing. Started from that. But no sooner as the house competition got over that you find you're into the school team, and away we go. So that must have been 15 years old. It wasn't right down at 11 and 12 in those days. Basketball wasn't even seen in the school other than for sixth formers. So it was school, and there was a guy called Phil Holden. Some of you, I don't know that anybody's come across Phil Holden, but Phil Holden was a Rochdale man. He went over to Preston, did some good stuff in Preston. I think he's in Scotland. If he's still with us, he's in Scotland. But I haven't spoken to Phil in a long while. He started a club of two schools in Rochdale, and the Rochdale Cowboys. Oh no, they weren't Rochdale Cowboys. They were called Rochdale KCA, and my interest went from there. We played in the England Central League, and I decided that I'd had enough from a small industrial town. I had to go to a city. So what do you know? That's how I got to Birmingham in something like 1980.
Wow.
So that's my start.
Oh, awesome. Clive, coach?
Where do I start? I mean, one of the things when I was at school, I hated being tall. So I didn't want to go anywhere near a basketball court or anything. So I didn't actually play basketball at all when I was in school. It was when I actually left school, and I hooked up with this guy called Mike Landell. And his mate was going, come on, you got to represent Dudley now. So he took me over to, I had to catch 3 buses to get over to Coventry, where the old Fiat Bullets team used to train. And that's why I actually met Simon's dad. And we had a tryout, and he said to me, well, you're too old for our under 16s, and don't think you're good enough for the major team. So come back in a year's time, and we'll see. And the year to me, when I was 16, was like, what? So I actually stopped playing basketball for 2-3 years, and went out to the nightclubs and all the rest of the stuff. And then started working for, back in the day, it was Sports for All, this program. And I started to get back into playing football. And I was playing in a 5-a-side tournament over in Aston Villa, and got accosted by some guys saying, you should be playing basketball, not bloody football, So I switched sports, and started to actually, enjoy being tall. And Dave Slade used to run the Holyhead, where Douglas. I met Douglas down there. That was my first real team that I started to go. And all they used to say to me, just grab the ball and throw it to them little guys. That's all you need to do. And I was happy to do that. But I got a name. I think it was bloody Paul Douglas that gave me too, bloody Teflon, because I couldn't ball. So my big thing, when I first started it was the Holyhead, and it was to do with, from playing 5-a-side football. and getting recruited that way.
I mean, Clive, just on a serious point there, I know we're like, you know, it is a bit, a relatively funny story, but on a serious note, I mean, Pete, you may be able to have some input into this, but surely someone like Clive with his size and stuff should have been into the game, you know, from the ages of 12 or 13, or at least put into some sort of like position where he could have made that decision. I mean, any reasons why, Clive, you think that didn't happen, or, you know, Pete?
I don't, one of the things is back when I was going to school and we had to go to secondary school, we had to do a thing called 11 plus to get into a grammar school. And the grammar school was Clawton at the time, and that was the school that did basketball. It was literally, you know, probably just a mile down the road from the school that I went to, Hillcrest. And Hillcrest was mainly football. And Sir Gilbert Clawton was basketball, but it was a grammar school, and I failed my 11 plus, so I didn't get to go to that school. And that's the school that the likes of Mike Landell and Clive Watson, they all went to that school, and they played predominantly basketball there, and I missed out because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't, believe it or not, wasn't very outgoing, and so I hated being tall, so I wasn't really around that kind of sport. And the school I went to, there's probably 500 students there, pupils there, and there was like 3 black people there, and I stuck out like a sore thumb, and I didn't like that, you know, so I used to like kind of try and hide, and if they said play basketball, I'd be seen, and I'm like, no. But it is. I look at it now, and you know, and I'm like thinking, because when I went to the States, they were just like flabbergasted, like going, why are you not playing? I went to the States playing, I think it was like two years of basketball at the most, 2-3 years of basketball. And it was like saying, if you'd have played basketball at, you know, a younger age, who knows, you could have actually, you know, I had the right size and build for an NBA player. And I'm like going, oh, wow, you know, but
You did.
I can only dream.
That's my
man.
point.
I can only dream.
Crazy.
I think one of the things in those days was the schools league were very strong.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go very far to get a good team of athletes. There were you know, plenty of them around. So
I don't know.
You didn't go looking for people. They came to you almost.
Yeah.
As I said, it was just that the school that I went to it was predominantly white school, and it was a predominantly like kind of football or rugby kind of thing. So we played basketball when it was raining, and it wasn't basketball of any kind of ilk. It was just like throw the ball and who can we hit upside the head with the ball. That was it.
Dougie, what's
mine was weird, man. I was like a fat stumpy kid, right? And then, I still am, yeah. I ain't been able to shake that, man. And I went to Jamaica. I think it was 76 or 77. And while I was out there for, it seemed to me I was in eternity. I think I was out there for about 2 weeks or so, but it seemed like it was forever. And I kind of outgrew all my clothes. I sprouted up when I was out there. And I came back and I ended up being like lost a little bit of weight, a bit slim. And I went to a school called Jaffray, which is no longer, it's a housing estate now. And I was maybe about an inch and a half shorter than what I am now. So as I walked in as a year 7, the teacher called Mr. Bundock, I can't remember what his first name is, but Mr. Bundock walks in, sees me, and he goes, playing basketball. And that was it, right? He's playing basketball. And I remember we had a meeting in the classroom, and he's got all these guys in, and he goes, we don't do basketball here for the season. We do basketball all year round, right? So I'm like, what's basketball? Right? I had no idea. Never really saw it, anything like that. And used to get, I remember my dad calling me in, right? And the Globetrotters were on. And he goes, there's this basketball, Globetrotters, come watch it, because that for him, it was entertainment. It was not more than entertainment. So anyway, we ended up going to Jaffa. We played a little bit, and I was shocking. But I was more of an athlete, because I remember my first race for 100 meters, I ran 13 seconds as a year 7. And my last race as a year 7 was 11.9. So I could have either gone into athletics or basketball. I was a good jumper as well. I think it was at, when I was like a year 9, I was jumping nearly 2 meters for high jump as well. So I had a choice between the two. And then I think what happened is Mr. Bundock says that we were too good for the year 8 league. So he made us play in the year 9s. He made us play up. And we did quite well in that. And then I remember he took us over to Coventry and we saw a Team Fiat game. If I remember correctly, right, it was just smoky, right? It was on a Wednesday. It was crazy. I looked down at the atmosphere and I was like, yes. And up on the balcony, you know, if you've been to Coventry, you know, up on the balcony, right, looking for it. And I looked and I was like, I want to be a basketball player. That's it. That's what I want to do. I want to do that. I had no idea about what the standard was, whatever it is. I just know I wanted to do that, right? And then I can't even remember how it happened. Someone mentioned that it might have been Mr. Bundock as well. He turns around and goes, there's a session on, I think it's a Friday, over at this place called the BAI. And with me, I think it was Dave Brown. I don't know if Mike Landell and them guys came down, but we used to all converge down at the BAI on a Friday. I remember now, Pete used to take it. And Pete, I remember talking about this the other day, Pete, and Pete used to teach all these moves, right? And I don't know how long it is. We like do these moves for about half an hour, and then we'd play games for half an hour, right? And Pete would go, whoever done this move in the game would get a poster. And you got everybody coming down doing jump stops, shot fakes, and step throughs, trying to win this poster because you couldn't get anything with basketball at the time, anything like that. So that was, we used to really enjoy that. That was fun, and you kind of got opened up a little bit more from there. And I mean, you couldn't do it now, but I used to have guys used to come to the school at the school gates and go, is Dougie there, right? And they'd be like, yeah, that's him there, you can't miss him. Like, he's the tallest guy for like 3 years. And you walk out of school and he'd be like, will you come and play for us? And I'd say, right, you have to go ask my dad, right? So again, I mean, Dave Slade came across, I think and I took him over to my house, spoke to my dad, and my dad goes, you pick him up from the house, you drop him off at the house, and if you do that, he's yours. Dave was the only one who said, yeah. He goes, right, that's it. So we'd go over to, this was at 14. So we go over to Holyhead up in Handsworth, and we trained there. And then I started seeing all like the likes of Clive Watson and Kevin Penny. I'm like, these are men, man. These are dudes. How many kids they got? You know what I mean? Like, they're absolutely massive. And then at that time, I think it was me, Mike Landell, Dave Brown, Tony Penny, God rest his soul. I can't remember, there's a couple more. We kind of all came at the same time. And then from then, I remember we just kind of got caught up. I can't remember how I ended up with, going to one of like Simon's dad's, Dave Fisher, his sessions, but I ended up going to one of them. And they didn't have a under 17 team at the time. I don't think it was under 17 league. There was only the under 19s. And there was that, and then they formed like an under 17, like kind of like half like national league. I think it was just like the northern side, whatever. And we kind of played in that a little bit. And then you met like, oh God, was it now? All the Manchester guys were like Carl Miller and them guys. Like, who are these guys? These guys are massive. And yeah, funny enough, right, I ended up playing.
Carl Miller was a Birmingham boy.
Well, I heard he was born in Birmingham, but he was actually playing in Manchester. He was from Manchester, right? So right. Yeah, from that, right. So that's when they came down. So when you saw all those guys. Right. But funny enough, right, I was lucky enough. I made the England under 15 squads, and then I was actually playing for England under 17s and couldn't make the National League team. It was that strong because you had like George Branch and all those guys in front of you. There's no way he was making that team, right? So I think I only played about 1 year in National League. And then I ended up playing for Pete, and again in that central league, isn't it, Pete? Mm-hmm. Ended up playing in that league a year after I rookied my first year at Birmingham Bullets. Came out, and my rookie year, I think, was just turned 19, because them days it was like if you weren't under that age before the 31st of December, you missed the year. So even like if I take example, me and Mike Landell, all guys are in the same year at school, but because Mike's born 66 and I was born 65, Mike had an extra year and I had to leave. So I ended up being, I made the Bullets senior squad, right, for that time. And then a year after I was cut and I played with Pete in the Central League. Kind of did all right. And a little bit after that, right, I got asked, Chicken says they're looking for a player up in Newcastle, someone who could score. And I think I just had a game, I think it was against Loughborough, and I scored something like 40 or 50. And I mean, you know what City boys are like, yeah, I can score. Yeah, no problem. So that's how I ended up going up to Newcastle, because the Chicken gave me a phone call, and I went back to my mum and says, I'm going to Newcastle to play basketball. She goes, where's that? I says, I have no idea. I've got to go to New Street Station and catch a train. And then some guy's going to pick me up at the other end. I had no idea it was like, so that's what it was. But I actually made a choice at about 14 to not do athletics and go into basketball. We had I was doing sprints and jumps, and we did a bounding session in the pouring rain. I mean, it was literally cats and dogs. And I came away from that run. I said, I'm done. I'm done with athletics. That's why I'm going to take up basketball. So I used to guess
we definitely know.
I used to guess the couple of times. I used to turn up with my England tracksuit, right? Go and come like third in the high jump or second in the high jump, long jump, triple jump, like in the county sort of thing. And they would all go, "Are you coming to athletics?" I go, "No, I'm going to play basketball. See you later, mate." And I'm done. That was it. That was it. So that was my introduction to it.
Good. Simon?
Yeah, well, firstly, Dougie, I'm sure Mike will be thankful that you've given away his date of birth. I think he'll love that one. I guess, unlike the other three, I guess I was probably born into it, I suppose, in many ways. I think, 46 now, so I think I was probably at a game when I was minus 6 months, so to speak. I think I was sort of born into the game and grew up following my dad, and I guess generally wherever a ball was bouncing and my dad was there, then I'd be there either watching with my mom and just being around the sport. So I suppose anything from helping with the tuck shot when I was really young to bringing the balls on court and so on and so forth. So I think there was no, I suppose in many ways didn't have a choice, but I think it's worked out okay in that sense. I mean, in terms of playing myself, I think you just I grew up with the game and sort of cricket and basketball were the two sports that I played to any reasonable level. I played other sports like tennis and so on, but my dad was involved in the club and therefore I wanted to be part of the club. So I guess I'm very much a second generation in that sense. There was no basketball, those that knew my dad and knew about it, then he would be it was no choice. It was basketball or nothing. I think my brother escaped that a little bit, but I was caught with a bug.
Hey, Simon, right, I remember being his dad used to do all these drills. I remember the defensive drills, and Simon was there doing all the drills with him, right? And I remember it was with the under 16s, and I think I was telling one of the kids, I said, you don't understand, right, that I used to bounce Simon on my knee to away games in the mini bus. It was only like tiny right, but man, I remember them days. My career was dead.
Well, on that, when I was coaching England, the last year I was coaching them, I had Luke Nelson and Sam Round as part of that team, and Steve Nelson, obviously, legend himself, but he was saying back in the day that my dad coached both Steve and Sam's dad, Mike Round, who were both from Samwell, fantastic players. I think they went to Holland with him or something along those lines, but certainly played for him for a tournament. So there we are, sort of, I don't know, 20 years on, and I'm, coaching their sons. So I guess, and I do think it makes a difference, those sort of second generation players. But I don't know. I don't think I had a choice, Dougie. It was, if I didn't want to get in basketball, I was going to be in basketball in some way, shape or form. So,
Awesome. Pete, can you, being the senior of the senior coaches here, can you talk very quickly about your first coaching stop, and then give us a little kind of history about how some of this stuff kind of manifested itself in Birmingham itself?
How long have you got?
We could do a podcast on you.
I've got to go back to the school where I was in the house team.
Sure.
Before I left school, I'd done 2 years of coaching. So in lower sixth, You might have heard of Bob Wilson, but Bob was in the same school, and we were just great friends. It was his initiative to go coach the first year kids, and so we started coaching that group together. And I think the 3 actually got to England level out of that first lot. Certainly 2. It was 2 or 3 kids got to play for England schools out of that first lot that we started coaching as green, 16-year-olds. So that was fun. The year after, I took the next year going. Bob continued with that particular group, and sure enough, one of those got to England level as well. I've got to say that I did leave school after that, and the kid blossomed probably more when I was away from him, but he did. And so the next thing that happens is I do my training, get a physical education qualification, and go back to the same school. So picking the proverbial or what, just love that. We had a ready-made team. One of these first-year kids from Bob's first group was captain of the England schools team that first year. Second year maybe, something like that, around 69, 70. And I don't know, I just had a charmed existence of opportunities creeping up. So I was on the England school staff the next thing I know. And the only reason for doing that is there was kind of a political dispute somewhere. And the only way of resolving it was to bring somebody new in. And because the old timers were arguing about it and what have you, didn't get their own way. And an opportunity arose. And the next thing I know, I'm blooming assistant coach to the blooming national team. So I really had a charmed existence from that point of view. But having said that, I had friends at school that said, what are you doing all this coaching for? You should be playing. Get on with playing. You could plenty of time for coaching later on. But sorry, the bug was there. And so before we left school, Bob and myself went on a course with 2 England internationals. A fellow called Cornell Tober and Wilf Byrne were old-time England players. And they did a course, and it was like a level 1 course, that's all. Down at Alsager College, and we did that before we were 18, kind of thing. Right. So I don't know. The start to it was.
How did you get to Birmingham then? Because I might not mistaken. There's a John Collins link in here somewhere.
No, not John. Kerry Mumford.
Kerry Mumford.
Kerry. Kerry.
So we had 2 national coaches, Brian Coleman and Kerry Mumford. For whatever reasons, I got on with them both very well. And Kerry was principal of the Birmingham Athletic Institute and created a couple of posts in sports. It wasn't always going to be basketball. There was a range of sports. It could have been hockey, I think was one. There was a dance lady that actually did get a job there. But I came through on that and got a responsibility for basketball. So that's all I ever wanted. So working under Kerry, the next thing that happens is Team Fiat come into Birmingham and announce that they're not going to run a junior team. They just lost a sponsor, which is regrettable. So they had to cut the junior program. Well, hang on now, we're not having no junior program in Birmingham. We're going to have to run it from the BAI, which we did. And Dave Fish answered the call, and in fact he was instrumental in bringing that together. So it was Dave's work, and we managed to find a sponsor that covered a lot of the expenses, and that wonderful team. I think there were probably about 6 internationals in that team that Dave coached. So Dougie's mentioned a few already, but there was Chris Grimley, there's Richard Clive. There were other people that came into that. It was a wonderful bunch of young men.
That team was stacked. Yeah.
So it was a team and a half. Yeah. The saddest thing about all of that is that we could never keep them all in Birmingham. Kevin Penny went up to play in Manchester. Dougie had to go up to Birmingham, the northeast, on missionary work up there. It was sad, but at one stage you could look at almost any team and find a Birmingham player playing for them. all very sad that we couldn't keep them together.
Before I move on to Clive, Pete, where at this time, where yourself and Dave where were you upscaling your coaching, like, philosophy? Were you looking at some American coaches? Were you, was there any, kind of ability to, when you went abroad, maybe to take a team to see, to network there, or what were you doing to get better as a coach? Or both of you were just close to each other and were pushing each other?
I think we had much at we funny enough, Dave and myself had the same job. We were both working for the local authority, running leisure centres. We were both senior coaches for the association. We just had so much in common. It wasn't funny. We actually worked about 2 miles apart or something like that. It's ridiculous that we're on that same path. So when the BAI team there, I actually administered that team and wasn't coaching it at all, because the opportunity came over at Sandwell to coach there. And so I kind of earned my stripes coaching in Division 2. I was always anxious to be learning things. So a variety of people, one Belgian coach comes to mind, a fellow called Rene Moll, was like a FIBA level coach. And so I'd bumped into him on taking the schools teams over the water. I eventually brought him over here, and he was a terrific influence on a lot of coaches in the West Midlands because he was the leading light. So he was.
Pete, did he do a coaching? Did he do a coaching camp over here?
Yeah, I
remember being there.
Right, Timeout School of Sport that we ran here in Birmingham, and Renee came across and led that. So we were picking up information from wherever, you had to go look for it in those days. I don't know, Tony. I think I probably stole most of my ideas from you, if the truth's known. But
come on, now.
There's stuff in my locker that comes out of yours for sure.
Yeah,
you picked up stuff wherever you could.
Yeah. Okay, Clive. Just you could talk. I would love for you to talk a little bit about your career. I mean, you were in those Bullets teams. You were coached by some incredible coaches. So I'm only assuming that was some of the things that you picked up as a younger coach. But talk a little bit about that, and then how you got involved in coaching and started progressing from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look back at all the good coaches. Probably people don't remember Art Ross when he came over, and he was like I never saw a coach who could just write up a play in 5 seconds and get people to actually do it. I'm one of them people that I have to do.
But you were coached by a guy that's won an NBA championship, and he's just we'll clip that one out, Clive.
But that's when I first started, and I never saw anyone just write down a play and actually get people to do it, because to perform it out there, because I was terrible. I had to actually work on a drill. If you draw it out in front of me, it makes no sense to me. I just is okay, what do I do on this? Just tell me what I do. But I couldn't understand what the point guard was doing. But when Art Ross put things down, everybody just it just clicked. But we had the likes of Butch Hayes on there, so that probably helped a lot. But I started, it had a lot to do with Pete Mintoft, to tell you the truth, because when I was playing, we had to go out and start coaching in the schools. So we had to go and do our levels. And I started doing my level 1, and then Pete was my the tutor at the time. And he says, "You've got something, Clive. I don't know what it is, but you got something, and you should, continue playing. But I think you should also look at coaching." And I used to remember going over at what was the name of that school over in that used Summit Green?
Lee Green?
No, was it Green? It's up by Erdington.
Stockland Green.
Stockland Green.
There you go. And I did
my neck of the woods.
yeah, we did quite a lot of my levels there, you know, and it was, you know, not just because he's here, but Pete really used to push and say, look, Clive, you know, you have got something, and I really enjoyed the seeing the smile on kids' faces, and it made me want to, you know, like, I wanted to make basketball fun, because I really enjoyed, you know, being around people, and I'm like thinking, if someone had got around me at that age, you know, that you know, influenced me into playing the game. So that's why, you know, I really kind of pushed, you know, going through those levels and trying to get my you know, enjoy playing and coaching at the same time.
But Clive, you were, you know, I mean, we joke about it, but I mean, though in those days, Nick was pretty hard. I'm assuming as a coach, you know, I know one of his famous lines is you know, toes to the line, on the baseline and stuff. And I know, you know, he was pretty hard. Do you were coached by Mike Finger, I'm assuming, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I could go, you know, show my age. I could go through so many different coaches. And Nick would probably be one of my favorite coaches, because he made basketball fun. He made it easy. Everyone just got on. It was just like he could be one of the players when he wanted to be one of the players, but he also could be that coach as well. And that's, you know, I take a lot of that from him, because we used to like being around that coach, where the other coaches, as soon as we finish training, whatever, I'm like, I don't want to, you know, I don't hang around or be around that coach. But Nick, you know, he'd like, guys, we just finished, let's go get a pizza, let's do this. And it wasn't like, oh, we had to do it, we wanted to do it. And his drills are so innovative that, you know, I could actually, again, you know, I mentioned the fact that Art Ross was doing all these marvelous things, you know, on the board, but Nick got, you know, the way he broke things down, you know, part O and fitting it all together. It was just, you know, it was just so easy to do. And it was the you know, I can say the most fun that I've had playing basketball, because I was learning. I enjoyed practice, which, you know, a lot of people, you know, even though, you know, running suicides are fun, he made it different. He did different things, you know. It's like, he'd say, let's he'd shoot with us, and he'd go on the halfway line. He goes, I'm going to shoot this ball. If I make this, you all have to stay half an hour after, you know. And he made it every freaking time. You know, he didn't like it. There's no way you're going to make this half, and he just throw it up there, and, you know, and it'd go in. But we wanted to stay half an hour anyway, so it wasn't like, oh, well, you know, but we was like, oh, well, let's go, let's get after it. And having the likes of, you know, Tony Dorsey and Nigel Lloyd. And I mean, when Nigel Lloyd came to the team, I thought, it's time to retire. I played against him at Thames Valley, and all he did was talk. Call you a scrub, call you whatever. I remember Tony, his name,
Tony Holly.
Tony
Belogan.
Yeah, he was playing with him, and I went to dunk it, and he tried to block my shot, and I broke his nose. And it was, you know, I just went up there strong and I broke his nose. But of course, him and Nigel were best of friends. So he went off the court. I'm still playing. I'm running back, and suddenly I got a thump in the back of my head. It was Nigel. Yeah, that's a Tony. I'm like, you know, I'm like, this guy's coming to Birmingham Bullets now, and he was the captain. And for the first season, we never spoke at all. We worked on the basketball court, but we never spoke or anything. And it was the following year that I got enough money, and we went to a holiday in the Barbados. And guess who was there? Nigel Lloyd. and he came over to our hotel, and he's like, I'm not really spoken to this guy. He's like going, glad to see you here, whatever. The next couple of days, I got a car. I'll take you all around the place. And he left his car with us. He took us all over the place. I was like, this guy's different. And he's so different on the court than off the court, and we just became really. I mean, he's, you know, we still talk at least once or twice a week. He'll just call and just, you know. But having the likes of those players, I mean, you know, I'm talking about, you know, Nige, Tony Dorsey is exactly the same. My good friend Tony Sims. I mean, we're just tight as ever. Amiko Atete, that group. We were just friends. And, you know, another one was Trevor Gordon. He's another one that I'm like, you know, you can imagine us having battles on the basketball court. And then he was coming to our team. Yeah. And people don't know. But
we won't talk about the Trevor Gordon BBL trophy story.
They brought him to the team, but it was actually going to get rid of me. They're trying to sell me to Manchester to bring him in. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I didn't have a say in it because obviously big Trevor Gordon coming to Birmingham Bullets, and I was going to go after Manchester. And I was like thinking, bloody hell, this is not good. But they ended up keeping the both of us. And then when Trevor came, we had battles. But again, we were just, you know, we hanged out and it was just so good. Yeah. So, that, you know, that's, you know, how I felt at Birmingham Bullets when Nick was there. He just made it fun. And anybody else coming in, when Mike Finger came in, we already had that momentum of Nick. So we just carried on kind of thing. He did try and change some stuff for the first, I think it was the first month or so, but then he had to go back. He goes, guys, I give up. You guys run all the plays that Nick run, and if you want, because we all kept saying, "Well, Nick used to do this." Nick used to do this. He obviously would piss him off. Excuse the French, but he did succumb, and we all went back to the Nick Nurse way of running things, and you know, hence that second, you know, playoff win.
Simon, before I get to Dougie, you know, talk a little bit about, obviously, you know, your dad, you know, had done so much, you know, coaching. So what was your thought process? You know, was that something that you wanted to emulate, that you wanted to get into coaching from an early age? Or was it something, you know, what was that process, you know, and did you feel some sort of pressure on that situation? You know, and that, you know, we talked a little bit about this before.
Well, yeah, I just go back to what I talked about earlier. There is a John Collins link to my dad, actually. I think my dad was one of John's students. I think he was a sixth former. John was a teacher. So I spoke to John recently about it, or conversation anyway. But so I guess there is a by osmosis a link to myself with John, I guess. My journey into coaching, I did do a level 1 with my dad when I was 16. I think we were running one at the club, and therefore I asked whether I could do it. I suppose, you know, I wasn't a great player. I mean, I used to play at 16s and 18s and used to sit way down the bench and watch people like Steve Hansel play. And probably at the time I used to get a bit, you know, why don't I get any minutes? Realistically, now looking back at it, it's because I wasn't good enough. But I suppose, you know, I thought maybe my dad was being too harsh on me at the time. But, you know, realistically, you know, it was never that good in terms of my ability to play on the floor. So I suppose my coaching journey though started after, you know, my dad passed away suddenly, which I'm sure the guys, you know, remember and so on. But I went to university at Stoke, Staffs University, and I was going to play National League, club junior basketball, but the age groups changed, so effectively I was too old to play. And an old coaching friend of my dad said, you know, well, if you want to come, you can start coaching. And yeah, you know, maybe there was a pressure on me. I've always said I wanted to keep the family name going, I suppose, keep the tradition going. And I just, a bit like Clive said, really, I fell in love with coaching kids and seeing them progress, seeing them develop. And, you know, I used to go down and, you know, my university mates now used to remember we get up on a Saturday morning. You know, we'd go out Friday night and enjoy ourselves, and I'll be up Saturday morning at 8:30 to go down Northwood Stadium in Stoke and coach these kids. And what are you doing? You're nuts, Simon. You know, it was a drug, I suppose. It was something I loved. I saw my dad doing, and I guess it was relatively fresh that he passed away. And you know, I suppose it was my inspiration to continue to that name. And here I am sort of 25 years on, I guess, I'm 26 and I'm still coaching. So I think at the start, I still think there is now in terms of, trying to, keep that name going. But I think, over time that's progressed into, the enjoyment and just, it is a drug. It's basketball was in my blood, and I guess that was the driving force really. And coaching Stoke, coaching at that club, and then getting involved. One of the, I suppose, greatest honours was going back and actually coaching at Birmingham. A couple of years after that, I was coaching Birmingham, and I was sort of coaching the club that my dad, helped grow, found and grow, and that type of thing. So I've been very fortunate. Obviously my dad and the neighbours meant that maybe doors have been open and so on. So I suppose it's then trying to utilise that to your best of your ability, I suppose. But it was my first coaching appointment was at Stoke Basketball Club up in Stoke-on-Trent. So.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think that all of us here, I don't think there's any British coach that has this kind of perfect path that we just go along. I think that we all as coaches, try to, like Pete has said himself, it's just a stroke of luck. I could tell you 15 strokes of luck that I had along the way of being involved with different people that, you shrug your shoulders. It just doesn't happen like it does in so many other countries. But I'm going to come back to you, Simon, on some of the other influences, because you've done a lot of national team stuff as well, which is really interesting. Dougie, quickly, because the thing about you is that you've also, like Clive, as a player, experienced many unique coaches, but you also, you came into into coaching in a unique way as well. So let's talk about that situation.
Yeah, when I hadn't really even contemplated coaching in any shape or form, because I ended up doing engineering at college, and that's a story in its own right, but I won't go into that. And then I want to go up to Newcastle, and I wanted to continue I say Newcastle because at the time it was actually Gateshead. But if you mention Gateshead to most people, they'd say, "Where's that?" You mentioned Newcastle, I goes, "Oh yeah, I know where Newcastle is." So I ended up trying to go to renew the course I was on, engineering course at Gateshead College as it is now, and the club wouldn't pay for it. So I was like, nah, stuff it, they ain't doing it then. And then as part of the coaching, the deal with playing is we had to go coach in the schools. So I did a lot of coaching in schools practically from the age of 20. So and then I did other stuff as well. I did ladies keep fit, men's keep fit, kids fitness. I'm actually a qualified aerobics instructor, all the rest of that sort of stuff like that. People probably testify to this, that when you work for the council in sports development, you went on a lot of courses. So I kind of was doing that as well.
Who took your level 1 and level 2?
Oh gosh, what's his name? It used to be the team manager for the England senior men's, or is the GB squad. I forget what his name is now. Tall dude. He was up in Newcastle at the time. I can't remember. I'm terrible with names when it comes to that.
Graham, somebody or other. Graham, come on. I know you mean anyway.
You know what I mean? It was that, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I had done it through him. But funny enough, right, it wasn't long after that. I can tell you now the year, it was 1984. It was the final year of me playing Division 1 before I moved back up to the BBL. And the owner of Gateshead came to me one day and he goes, "Doug, you need to coach the team." And I was like, "Coach, I ain't coaching the team." He goes, "Doug, you need to coach the team. If you don't coach the team, I'm folding it tomorrow." So I was like, right. So I actually was a player coach at 24, right, in Division 1. In like 1984, 1985, no, not 1989, 1990 season, because it was the year I got married and I went up to Sunderland the following year after that. So I got involved in that. That was a real eye-opener for me, right, in regards to actually being charged. Because, I mean, the guys would tell you, man, I was a nutter. It didn't take much to get me off, man. I was like, you look at me the wrong way, I'd flip. So, you know, all the stuff that, I just want to say this, all the best coaches I've ever had as a player growing up has always been my junior coaches, Pete, Dave Fish, Mr. Bundock, right? And I learned so much from players because I was very visual, right? So if you showed me something, I could replay over and over and over in my head. And that's how I used to go and practice. But Dougie, stuff like that.
Well, talk about some of the. So you're saying that some of the pro coaches. Talk about who were your pro coaches? Because did you play under Tom Becker at Sunderland or not?
No. I played. It was Craig Lynch the first year. I just missed Jimmy Brandon. And Craig Lynch, and then it was what's his name again? Dave Elderkin. Dave Elderkin. And then from Dave Elderkin, we had Russell. Russell was my coach right for a year, and that was interesting. And then we had Tom. What's his name? Was that Newcastle? First year at Newcastle.
Tom Hancock.
Tom Hancock. I mean, me and him never got on. I can say that now. We never got on at all. Clive's laughing. Clive knows what I'm like. We never got on. Because at that time in my career, I mean, I said I didn't want to play past 30. I think it's different for Clive, man. But when you're a guard, man, them kids coming in are quick, right? And I always said, if I have to smack them to slow them down, it's time to get out, right? So that was why I retired at like 30, 31. But already at that time, I was starting to think about strategies and tactics and what we should do and all the rest of that sort of stuff. Because I was kind of like creating my own like little basketball program as a side, a little following that I had, not quite the PDSD, but a little thing we used to have sessions all the time. So I was heavily involved in doing that as well. So, but Tom was, if you gave him time to break down like a team's offense and all the rest of that and come up with this, oh my Lord, he was, to this day now, he ran a 1-3-1 amoeba zone, right? And I took that, and it's funny enough, I'm not going off a little bit, I took that and stuff we learned with the national team when Humph, God rest his soul, when Humph was around, and we saw the Russian team do a 1-2-1-1 half court, right, press back into a proper zone. And I'd never seen that. I've seen it in the full court, but I've never seen that in that situation. I remember looking at Humph going, what's this? And Humph was looking at me and was trying to break it down. And then what happened is I then took parts of that and the 1-3-1 zone that Tom used, and I amalgamated it together, and I came up with my own system, which worked really well when I had the academy in Middlesbrough and when I did the first stuff in Newcastle. And I kind of tweaked that so it made sense to me, and my players bought into it. So you know that's another thing, right? But yeah, for me the coaching and being around because I worked at Gateshead City Council of Sports Development as well. So I was around Olympic athletes, Olympic coaches, runners. As you know, Gateshead's real massive on athletics, and having an athletics background, I was in and around. I got to meet people like Linford Christie, Ed Moses, and I'm like being like a player. I was always interested into what players had to say and athletes had to say. I just listened to what they had, and that's what kind of like shaped what I would do in my coaching. And again, like Clive, when you're coaching in the kids, mine was like, oh, do this, do that, and hang on, maybe I should put that in my game. I'll probably make it a little bit easier because I wasn't really taught that. So again, my thought process was if I could put all the knowledge I have in my head now into that player at that age, how much better would they be as they get older? So that's when I really started to like turn it over. And the things that I learned with Pete, with the moves and the way that Fisher used to always say, Dougie, sit down, right? like I used to give him grief because I used to curse him out. I was like, he said to me, I'm like, whoa. It's like, he goes, don't get sit down. And I sit down, and I'll be stewing on the end of the bench like really mad. And he'd come across and he'd go, are you calm now? And I'm like, yeah, I'm calm. He goes, no, you're not. And then he'd go away. And then he'd come back and he goes, are you calm yet? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay, now I need to do a job because you're not used to us in the state you're in now. So what I learned from Dave was like, just give, there's another chance. There's another chance. There's another chance. Don't worry about it. And I think that's what I can be harsh sometimes, right? But I try to explain to people like, listen, this is what you need to do. Take a little bit of a break, come back in. Because as I look at those kids and I reflect on like, well, you and me, right? I was angry with the world and I didn't know how to cope with it. And I think Dave was really good at getting all those kids, right, to all be on the same page. And like, we would die for each other, like as players, right? And I think that from a coaching perspective, you try to get that all the players to get into that, right? And I had that with all the junior kids. That's for sure.
That's a great segue. I want into the next question. So, Dougie, you're really explaining, some sort of an ethos, and Pete obviously was part of that, some of that ethos along with Dave Fisher of, what was Birmingham Basketball there and why you produced so many good players. So, talk about, that's a lot of success in, it's in the junior levels, which manifested itself into senior levels. I mean, there were many players. You've mentioned most of them. Talk about what was the reason in that period of time, Pete? Do you think that there was, there was yourself, there was Dave, there's a number of people that were involved? I mean, what was it? Just, the right time at the right place?
Interesting, really, to look back on it. There was a phenomenal amount of athletic talent there. We'd have to come to London to get a game, kind of thing. Manchester were sweeping up the northwest as usual, and got a really good team together up there. But there wasn't a right else around the place, and the difficulty was the players went to other teams purely simply we couldn't afford to keep them in Birmingham. The rates of pay weren't good enough or realizable enough to keep people happy. Even when I was coaching Bullets, the salaries were pitiful that the players got. I think the Americans were paid reasonably well, but it was insufficient to live. It wasn't a living wage that players could make from the English. Yet that team was two Americans and local boys, basically. We brought one or two in. Dave Roper came in. Who else? Mike Payne came in. Reasonably quality players that played for national level or went on to play at national level. So they were fine. But I don't know. It's they were just an unusual group of young men that came through. Very, very talented. I don't know. Do you think anything different, Clive?
What was that? Sorry.
Just talking about like what, in respect of like the talent that you and, Dougie, that kind of generation, was coming through. I mean, you met, really good coaching at the same time. I mean, I'm just trying to get and understand. I mean, just for example, I mean, obviously you talked about, I mean, let's be serious. Kenny Scott could have played in the NBA. Am I not? And probably if he's grows up now, he's in the NBA, I would think. Spencer did play in the NBA. Now, I'm not sure if Spencer, how much he actually came through the system here. Mine Henlon, I mean, mine was, I mean, as good as we've ever had as a big in this country. So, I mean, and then forget about all these other guys, Mike and all the rest, Tony, yourself, Clive, Dougie, everyone. These are great. These are like some of the best players that ever played the game in our country. And they come from this era. I mean, I'm just trying to get a feel of what the coaching was at that time? How did the coaching inspire those players to get to the stage that they got to?
I think a lot of it is to do with, you know, back in the day, as I said, when I was growing up and trying to play basketball, and I eventually, you know, went down that road, I had to catch 3 and 4 buses to get where I need to get to. I wanted to play it. Some of these kids in, like, you go, okay, you got to go from Dudley to West Brom. They're like, oh, I don't know about that. You have 2 training sessions each week. Whoa, I don't know about. Yeah, and I think because we wanted it more, you know, and again, I think the coaches now are brilliant, but we have to kind of cater for them too much, you know, and sometimes you have to baby them, and if they don't like what they see, they'll go somewhere else, or they'll do this, or, you know, where we like going, okay, I want to play basketball. The coach that you went to, you respected them, that, you know, you worked hard, and I think that has a lot to do with it, because, you know, I've been around a lot of kids, and I've seen, you know, I've seen the good ones, I see the ones that really want to do it, and then I see, you know, and you see the ones that just like being around it, and I think that's what's happening now. There's a lot of kids that want to be around it, but don't really want to put the work in. When you know, we were playing, if you was around basketball, you wanted to be the best you could be. You know, we put that hard slog in. We'd catch the 3 to 4 buses to get to where we need to be. Where now, you know, I know there's, you know, you can look at, there's different things happening. Kids can't be out late at night and all the rest of the stuff. But I don't know. I just think we were that group of people that if we wanted it, we'd make sure we get what we wanted.
Yeah, and like for me, right, is training was war, and I mean war. We had training sessions with Mr. Fisher, right, where it like training's over, see you Thursday. We were. I'm not joking, Tony. We were going at each other. I mean, we all know Mike Landell. No one can stop Mike from scoring, right? And we'd be like fighting, like he just scored 3 baskets on you, man. Now get off. I'd go, no. We're getting, as defenders, we're getting ready to fight each other to go mark the guy that's scoring to stop him scoring. You know how it's like that. And to echo what Clive was saying, I remember during the off season, I can't remember how much it was. Dave Harris from Leicester Buck, right, was all in that group, and there was a whole bunch of us used to meet at New Street Station, right? Get out. I can't remember if it was a train or a bus. Go over to Coventry.
Yeah,
to Sydney Stringer School. If there's anybody from Coventry in that year group at that time of year, I'm sorry. We came over and we bussed y'all, right? We did our thing, dropped back on the bus and the train, come back over. This is a Sunday, by the way. Go back over, come back to Birmingham, go to our houses, eat, and then go down to Holt School and Bogart their youth club and kick all the kids out and play basketball again. That was our life. And I remember telling this story. Aston Manor was the only place that we knew had an outdoor court, outdoor ring, right? And we used to, in the summer holidays, we used to jump over the fence, right, and play on the outdoor courts. And the guy who was the worst player would make him look like keep watch. And if the caretaker came, we'd then leg it and then go back over. So any opportunity we had to play, we played. And we were super, super competitive. And you got to look in them days like, and that's what the culture instilled in us, right? But they used to say, why beaten by 10 when you can beat by 20? Why beat by 20 when you can beat by 30? Why beat from 30 we can beat by 40? Just smash them. But do it with class. Handle yourself in the right way. Don't embarrass me, sort of thing, right? And I used to try and instill that with the kids when I was coaching up in Newcastle, because it's a different mentality, and I came with that, you know, that confident, cocky, inner city, or not cocky. What's the word I got? Confident, ultra confident. Like, no, who are you? Like, no, we're going to come and do you, like, sort of thing. So, for me, that's what it was about. It was, you couldn't come to training, and if training was bad, be like, we're going home. It's a waste of time. Going home. And that was the environment. It was the same at Holyhead, wasn't it, Clive? Like, you couldn't go to Holyhead training. Everywhere you went, it was like that.
we played at Clawton. You know, everyone used to go down on a Thursday, and it was just the place that everyone went. You know, and it was, you know, we'd be in there 1, 2 o'clock at night, still playing on a weekday, just because, you know, people wanted it. You know, and I just think it's a, you know, I'm not saying that the kids don't want it now, but it's just like kind of, it ain't, you know, just so, you know, and I think it's sometimes just so hard to coach kids when they, you know, they haven't got that kind of run through a wall for the coach kind of attitude. But
I'm gonna come back to that in a minute, Clive, but very quickly, Simon, quick question, and then I want all of you to answer this, okay? Why, you know, that we're not just comparing, oh, this is the old the time and stuff like that, but Dougie just brought up a great point there, okay? Dougie's saying, I mean, there might have been, Pete was working for the local authority. He's saying there's one outdoor court. I mean, and even that might be that's a stretch, okay? Why do you think that the players of that generation shot the ball better than what the generation is now? Why, Simon, do you think, what's the reasoning?
Well, I suppose just to cover the last point as well, in the sense, I think for me, and it's probably slightly after, but I don't quite remember, that time, but certainly, so I think schools basketball in Birmingham and the Birmingham area was just so strong. So I think the likes of, I'm sure, Dougie at Jaffray and all that kind of stuff, that those guys were playing just week in, week out with their school. And the level of schools basketball, in fact, in the 90s when I was sort of
Simon,
coaching.
You don't need to have to keep going on.
No,
I'll have to tell you a very quick story, and Pete's gonna laugh like hell. Pete contacted me about 6 weeks ago with a PowerPoint presentation of me playing at 14 in the national district finals, and Birmingham beating my London borough. As I keep pointing out to Pete, we were just one of the 32 London boroughs in the final. But no,
but I think so to win a Birmingham Schools title back in the day, that was a big thing, right? So I think that would make a big thing. And your point about developing some outside shoots, I think, if I'm perfectly honest, unless you were uber athletic, you weren't getting to the rim. You weren't getting to the rim without either getting some contact. So I think some players realise that if I can't get to the rim, I've got to be able to shoot the ball. So I think in some ways it might be more self-motivation. You can ask Dougie. I mean, Dougie's one of the best shooters, to come out of Birmingham, but he's probably thinking,
Dougie,
I got to save my life if I can shoot the ball. If
but no offense,
Clive, I'm ended up on the deck, I think.
But no offense to Dougie and to Tony Sims, it's not like their shooting form was absolutely Steph Curry. Like it wasn't the purest shooting.
They were the gym shooting. They just did the gym
But the ball went in every time almost. It's like right. I mean, Mike Landau, I think, am I not mistaken, Pete, had classic form, if I'm not mistaken. He was.
I don't know about Dougie, but I'm guessing, Dougie, you were in the gym. I mean, if you're in the gym 20 hours a week, you're probably longer than that, wouldn't you? You're just shit in the gym shooting. And a lot of these guys they hone their skills.
Yeah, like for me, I mean, I tell this story all the time with the kids. I mean, around the basket. I mean, I'm sure there are hundreds of kids who could testify, Dougie, any stories like, but. I mean, how I kind of got into the basketball as well as a year 7. I goes into network and the teacher goes, "We're going to make a toolbox. We're going to make this. We're going to make that. Blah blah blah. Dougie, what you make?" And I was like, "Basketball ring." I have no idea to this day why I said that. I just went a basketball ring, and I made this basketball ring. It was like at that angle. I got a C whatever for it, and my dad was not interested at all. He wanted me to be a boxer or cricket. That's all he was interested in. And he allowed me to put the ring up on the wall in our back garden. And I literally did exactly what Mr. Bundock told me. Go outside, underneath, blah, blah, blah. Now, you're talking about shooting form. In my mind, and this is what I always say to the kids, in my mind, I shot the ball like Steph Curry, mate. My form was perfect in my mind, right? And then Ross Saunders says, you shoot like a squirrel. Now, what are you talking about? And I saw a video, and I put it up. I was like, oh my God, right. But now I think personally, well, yeah, there's one thing. The people, like even the juniors, were men. they would just like, everybody, look at Clive, man. Everyone's looked like Clive, right? You know, guys are like a year older than you, and they were like this. So if you took it to the basket, you had to take it. I mean, I was lucky I could jump a little bit, right? So even if you tried to go over, they'd look in the eye and says, you're going to have to go through me, right? But the coach would say, I mean, I don't know if you saw him, but I remember your dad's follow through. His little finger used to kick out like this, right? When he used to shoot the follow, he'd be like, yeah, he used to be like that. You got to do this. And you had to shoot so many shots underneath the basket. And we would literally, right, go away and do exactly what the coach said. You had no YouTube, no, maybe a 5-minute segment on World of Sport, whatever it is you got on a Saturday. So you literally did what your coach told you. And obviously then it was very much fundamentals. And you learned a lot from the players in front of you. I mean, that was, and every team you played had a shooter. Every team. Doesn't matter, it was local league, national league, there was always one person on the guy that could flat out shoot it.
Pete, let's just changing just slightly. What do you feel that, of course, we've talked about, you know, some of the biggest influences, you know, so, you know, there's Pete and there's Dave, but do we think, you know, the whole of Birmingham, you know, like you say, in the school system, other junior coaches was very strong at that time, you know, the coaches of that generation, and they were producing, you know, players at school that then eventually went into these systems?
I don't know that the schools were giving us the finished product, but they were playing regular competition. I think Simon raised that point. That was the case. These kids had experienced the game. So normally the winter term was football up till half term, and basketball started up till Christmas, basketball after Christmas until half term. And in that time, there was just intense competition and some good work going on in schools. Whereas these days you look at schools and yes, they play a bit of basketball, but it's not basketball that we know. It's very, very simplified form that they'll play, not that skillful, I've got to say. But still athletes are coming through, but the clubs are having to take up the slack now, you know. You see Clive at work and he amazes me. His work rate when he coaches, he's on another planet. He can't get a word in edgeways, and it's fully. No, you're amazing, young man. When you go for it, so the kids are there and they're being coached, but we're taking them from such a low base of experience that makes it a long journey.
So I'll ask this question to Clive, but I want all of you to put, you know, your thoughts into it. Was there, like, after the so-called, say, heyday, that would have been, I don't know what the cutoff point of that would have been, trying to think player-wise, not Tony Sims, it would be after that, there was still Steve Hansel's generation. I should know that because I remember a vivid game at the NIA, the National Junior Under-19 Cup Final, where we, London Towers Juniors, were favoured to win that game by a lot, and we ended up losing. I'm not sure who was coaching that team, that Birmingham Bullets team, but I remember that generation was still incredibly talented. That would have been Stephen Barnes, I'm pretty certain. Stephen,
yeah, might be Brian Knowles. Might be Brian Knowles coaching.
Brian Knowles, yeah, exactly. So after that, and the demise of the Bullets, which obviously I did have a minor role in, but
you're not to blame for it though, Tony.
Listen, I still maintain people forget this story very clearly. I qualified for the last 16 of the FIBA Cup by finishing second behind. We actually beat an ACB team that season, Tenerife. We beat Mons twice and Fribourg twice. We only lost to Dijon in overtime at the Aston Villa Sports Centre, and we were second in our group going to the next 16. But Craig Bowen hadn't paid the bills, so we got thrown out of the competition by FIBA. It's a true story. No one really. I don't know why it's not on the internet, but anyway, the demise of the Bullets, and then there's this kind of void because obviously Dougie, you're elsewhere, and Clive, you're starting your coaching kind of business and stuff, and Simon, I know you're doing stuff at that time. Pete, I think you were not involved as much in the game at that time. What kind of happened in that vacuum? Was it the fact that there wasn't a Bullets and a focal point in the city, Clive? What do you think?
I think it was. It was, you know, it was the Bullets or nothing. And when the Bullets left, everybody's waiting, not thinking that, you know, this was going to happen. It was going to be a void of a National League team in the second city. So it was. We all thought it would be back. We'll be back. And then, you know, losing the venue and not having a venue was it started to just escalate all the way down, where there's so many reasons why we could not, why a team couldn't be brought back. Knowing that, again, trying to get the rights for Birmingham Bullets, the name, and, all the little things. There's so many just little things that that made it difficult to get a team back. Everybody just wanted, like, okay, we had this big team, we dropped, and all of a sudden, who's going to take up that slack? Who's going to come and, pour all this money into this team?
But forget about the fact that there's no professional team. It seemed to me, obviously standing from the outside, although I was there a little bit, there was a fragmentation of what was going on in the city. And, we don't have to, we got to be honest, there was a void. We're talking about Birmingham here. We're not talking about, no offense, we're not talking about Plymouth or, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Ipswich. We're talking about Birmingham, this powerhouse of generating NBA level talented players, or at least, guys that went and played in Europe and played professionally. And then all of a sudden, there's this kind of big gap, and it was just hit and miss of where players were coming from. Am I mistaken in saying that, Dougie? Yeah. Or sorry, Clive.
Go ahead, Dan.
No. For me, it was. I was literally out of the woods. I had no idea what was going on, right? Because up in Newcastle, you're just away. But I used to hear little snippets. So you'd hear about this player or that player and this, and then all of a sudden you never heard about much what was coming out of Birmingham, and you heard of more that was happening with kids down in London, right? From me. So I mean, even when I came back to Birmingham, no one knew I was in Birmingham, right? Because I would go home, and I'd be with my mum, and I'd see my sisters and that, and I might go out to the occasional clubs as well. Unless anybody saw me in a club, right, they wouldn't see me. And I would come back and like, there's nowhere to train. I can go back up to Newcastle now, and I can be back on the court, and I could train 2-3 hours a day. So for me, it was like I had no idea what was going in within the city. But what I will say, on experience now, having that professional team there as a player, and being able to go down to Aston Villa Leisure Centre and watch those players train and be around that, right? Even being now in places where they don't have that, the ability to have that older player, that superstar, and be able to see them face to face and see what they do was massive. Because I used to watch Carl Tatum, right? And I'd be like this, watching Carl Tatum. Like that. Didn't play like that, right? And then to be on the same court of him was like, I even had my hair cut the same way at the partying and everything. That's how much of an influence just watching those players are. And I think as soon as Bullets went, I think that would have had something to do. I think at the time I was in Nottingham at the time, I think, if I get my fingers right, I'd already moved to Nottingham by then. Yeah, that's right, because from 2003 to 2011, I was in Nottingham. So it must have been around at that time, because I took a Nottingham team over to see him play, Birmingham Bullets play, right? So it'd have been over that time. I think when Yorick was playing from it at that time as well. So, but not having that team there and not having a professional or a top-notch team there as an entity for those kids to watch, had to have had an effect. Most definitely had to have had an effect.
Simon, taking that point that Dougie's made there, which is I make this point on the podcast all the time about this visual and not the visual TV and computer. I'm talking about the feel of the players, the listening, how the feet are reacting on the floor. Well, I'm saying that even from a coaching standpoint, because I can tell you my experiences. When Kevin Cadle coached for London Towers, I used to sit behind. If I wasn't allowed near the bench, I was sit behind in the stands. You know, I used to go to Crystal Palace and sit behind the coaches because I wanted to hear, you know, what they were saying. Do you think that we missed that in some
Massively,
ways?
I guess I did, you know, by osmosis, I used to sit at the bench and listen to what people, you know, my dad and other coaches were saying. But I think Dougie's point is exactly right. I think one of the strengths of Birmingham basketball, in my humble opinion, is that it was connected to its community. So, you know, the Bullets back in the day was very, you know, the players that played, we had to, we talk about Butch Hayes, we talk about Dorsey, you know, those players that came through, but a lot of Greg White back in the day. But you had fantastic Birmingham talent playing with that, and there was a real connection to them. Those players were also playing local league. And I think that the fact that then players saw that and wanted to be part of that and then came through that. So players were being developed. I mean, you know, Steve Hansel was my age and I, you know, sit there, but he, you know, at 16, he was playing around the senior men, getting beaten up by people like George Branch and so on and so forth. But there was a pathway for him to go into. And those players were then competing for those spots. I think the challenge that, you know, then Bullets went and Harry Rubeski bought them and they went into the top league and really competed. And there was a real focal point. But there was a real, Harry, you know, I think personally did a really good job in terms of ensuring that community ethos was kept and there was connection there. I think one of the challenges that happened when Bullets left was there wasn't that focal point. There wasn't that opportunity for people to be involved and almost to come through. And, you know, some of my greatest memories are within that, you know, Aston Villa Leisure Centre and going down and watching games and being so close and you know, okay, I was 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever age I was, but you know, those senior players being around and almost that real sort of tangible, you know, kids that were 13, 14 that were growing up watching basketball could go down and watch these guys play. We didn't have that in Birmingham. We lost that when Bullets left. Okay, Knights came back and Panthers and so on, but there wasn't the same, I guess, they weren't ingrained within the basketball community. And I think that's what Birmingham have lost. And really, you know, if we could get that back, I don't know how we do. I mean, you know, it's not really for me to say, but I think what Bullets was a real community basketball club. And I suppose I would say that because of my dad, but I think that, you know, ask these guys who, like Clive and Dougie, but I think they, you know, they're local boys that went on to play for their club, but they're not the only ones. There was a lot of Birmingham talent. And when people could see that, and then coaches could go around and be like, you know, Art Ross, I remember him coaching, Mike Finger and all that. You know, these guys, it was almost accepted that, you know, you were part of the community. It wasn't an us and them thing. It was a real togetherness. And, you know, but you know, sadly that I think that was lost in the local basketball scene. I don't Dougie and Clive thing, but you know.
No, I think when Harry came, he came with that charisma. He came. Yeah. I can remember sitting down and he's saying like, one of the things is that we're going to make you all stars. And what we mean by that, you're going to be stars within your own community. We got to get you out there. We want to know what's going on. And he did a lot. You know, I was like, going, what does he mean by that? Because by the time he finishes in these 5 years, you're going to see people dribbling basketballs around the, you know, around the old, you know, Birmingham. Because we never saw basketball outside of, you know, outside anything. And I think that's what he achieved. He got everybody to work together, not just for the team, but for, you know, for the community, as he said, which was so important. He got us out doing camps, you know, he was the first one that really kind of said, you will be going out, we will have sessions that you're going to learn to go out and coach. I mean, there's lots of hits and misses, but he just said, we need to get it out, you know, the people, you know, and one of the biggest things that he did for me was that bloody picture of me.
Fitter than a speeding bullet, driving around Birmingham thinking,
oh
that man Clive that in it.
And but that alone, you know, when I used to go into schools now, people knew who I was, even though, you know, I wasn't one of those guys that played on the team. I used to get 5 minutes there and there, but they knew me more than they knew some of the Americans, and that kind of pushed me into that way. And when we look at that, when Harry left, he took a lot of that charisma with him. There was no like kind of, you know, I know Craig Bounds came in and tried to like kind of lift it, but it wasn't that kind of that community thing. He, you know, it was about, it almost seemed like it was about making that money. It wasn't so much about like, okay, we've got all these great volunteers and we had some of the best volunteers within the league that was doing things for nothing for the love of the sport. And they wasn't recognized by, by the Craig Bounds and, and he just, I felt it had gone, as much as we had all our ups and downs with Harry with little different things. He was always making sure, everybody got what they're supposed to get. If I wasn't, I didn't get paid as much as the Americans, but I could go to, or to McDonald's. They had all different places that we could go get something to eat. We had, there was different places that we could get some clothes. So even though we didn't, we got lots of things in kind. Where when he left, it was just like, oh well, fend for yourself, do this. I can remember having a game at Aston Villa, and Aston Villa were playing. The football team were playing before us, and they used the Aston Villa car park as well. And it was like £10 to park your car. They went off, and then the basketball came, and it's usually £2 to pay. They changed it to £10, and the people complaining about little things like that. And I'm like going, why are they charging people, £10 to park in an unsecured car park and all the rest of it? And it just went downhill from there. It wasn't fun. Basketball wasn't fun anymore. And I think it had Harry coming in and doing what he did, and then. It was a big thing to come in and take over, but it just didn't happen the way that it was supposed to.
I'm conscious of the time. I will say, trying to get to spin, not spinning, being in realistic mode. I think there is a renaissance. I think there is a more connectivity between all of the groups now. I mean, you're all working in different areas, and in different parts, but I feel that there definitely is, it's going forward. So next question very quickly, because I want all of you to answer this one. Pete, you can start with this. I asked this to all of the coaches. It's about coach development. It's about coaching fraternity, and you can bring this back to Birmingham if you want. But what are your thoughts on first the coach education, even on a national basis, but also in Birmingham itself, and then also as a coaching fraternity? Is there a coaching fraternity? Are we missing something in this country and also in the city?
I've got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed with the coaching development, for want of a better term, really. I don't think enough resource gets put into it. I don't think there's enough connectivity with it. Any number of things. And so I don't think coaching is as well off as it could be. There's some really good people working in the clubs that do it for the love, by and large, and it's happening. There are plenty of kids playing the sport, probably more than there were back in the days that we've talked about. And I think the coaches are getting better, but I think it's a real slow process. I think they could be accelerated in their education, but I don't think we're as connected as we might be. I don't really have an answer to say. I think there's one panacea that would do it all, but I think there are lots of good efforts going on, moving in the right direction. Our biggest problem in the city is we don't have a venue that can take decent size sport. When we had Aston Villa that fitted 2,500 quite nice, it was always nice to move into the indoor arena, but we couldn't fill it. It cost like 10 grand to open the doors. Well, that's unrealistic for a basketball club to find that unless it's very well resourced. So I don't know, to come back to the coaching, I think we've got lots of good young coaches around the place at the moment doing a pretty good job. But I think it could be much better if we were better connected. I really do think that.
Simon, you've you've gone to the highest levels. You know, you've coached national junior teams. You know, you've got now. Congratulations on your new roles as well. You know, within wheelchair basketball as well. So you've moved your coaching on. You know, not just from the city and the region. What do you think about this? The fraternity of coaches and working with each other, and specifically also relating to the city.
I think a lot of it is, I think you touched on earlier about, slices of luck. I think, it's who you get the opportunity to work with. And I've worked with some fantastic coaches of you. I worked with Dougie on national teams along with a guy called Nick Adamson. And I think that as you go up and as you create contacts, but I think it's done not by chance, that's wrong, but I think it's done by connections. Yes, you're on coaching courses, and I've done, in fact, Nick nursed in my level 3 all those years ago. And, you sort of make connections on that with Kirsty Xavier, for example. And then, you end up coaching teams or coaching the national programs. And, one of the things I was very keen to do was sort of develop a network of coaches, network of scouts. I can't go around the country watching players. And, I used to phone coaches up on a Monday and Tuesday. They'll probably tell me about Lloyd Gardner and Joe Forber, and, ask them, how did it go this weekend? I saw the result, but, again, and they'll tell me about their players. And then I'd say, well, okay, well, who else impressed you from the opposition? And almost you develop your contacts that way, and you learn from those people and beat around it. So I think almost not despite the system, I think, there was coach education going on, but it's not as structured as potentially it could be. Mentoring, I think, is something we don't do particularly well within our sport, and learning from, people that have been there and done it. I mean, I'm relatively young, I suppose, but I think that, certainly when I was doing national teams, I was, but, you can learn from people, learn from Rick Raldridge has been a great mentor for me, and, being around him and learning, Hunt Flong, God rest his soul, the things I learned off him, and Chris Morgan, who coached at East London. I was fortunate to be around it, but then you sort of maintain that connection. I think, the national, well, not national teams, but, we had the British Coaches Association and kind of was there, and it's not there. And I know they're trying to get it back up and running again, but just somewhere for coaches to share advice and guidance and just talk and, ask people about their advice, their experiences. I don't think we do that enough. And I don't think we almost try and reinvent the wheel when we don't need to, I think. And I think that as coaches, it's about giving, it's about sharing. Now I'm crossing the wheelchair and I'm working in wheelchair, and, we have trying to work across and just, it's not about, me knowing everything. I don't know everything. Do I know a little bit? Potentially, but that other person can, that other person can. And I think, what's it about? It's about making and helping athletes be better. And I think if we could do that, then I think that's what we need to do. But it's almost, yes, we're all competitive, right? So we go on a Saturday, we want to win, and we want the players to be as best they can be. But I suppose something I learned from my dad, and Doug touched it, do it with dignity. So do it to the best, but at the end, shake hands and share those nuggets. I'm really, really impressed. What have you done that? And I think that's that for me, that it's always been about. And when I coach national teams, I've got contacts now of coaches, of Belgian coaches, and that I've coached against. Just because, but that's things you do yourself. It's not done by the association and so on. I think that's something we could do better in terms of that, almost the coaching network, but mentors, whether that's official or unofficial, but just people to bounce ideas off. And I think that's, for me, that'd be something we could do that would make a tangible benefit.
Dougie, I mean, just specifically to you, that you're one of the coaches that I know because you call me and message me, and when you're trying to gain information, you contact various coaches. You think that happens with the younger coach in this day and age, or do you think that's something missing because maybe they've got so much resource online?
I think that most of what they do is they stick within their own. What I find is that you find that the younger coaches stick within what they know and their kind of era, because like we're kind of like out there a little bit, like we're so far removed that they it's what is like, I suppose, is like a generation Y or generation X that understand YouTube, they understand the other stuff they can get via that. For me, it's always been, I've been lucky that I've met Laszlo with the NBA Mad Skills. I met you, Tim Lewis, Tony Hansen, all those players who got a wealth of knowledge, and they were always there at the end of the phone if I ever wanted to call them advice. And basketball camps, the amount of basketball camps we did when I was younger, everybody talks about like how they went and how they did those. My basketball journey is through basketball camps. That's how I learned. And I think that what will get people talking, that network of coaches talking, those conversations till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning were invaluable for me. But then the problem then is like you're saying, is that when I then went back up to Newcastle, it's like, okay, so what happens next? Do I get information? So I literally spent, I'm sure this must be the same for most people, that I literally spent another 11 months, higgledy-piggling your way through it. And you come back to camp again, right? And then you get another load of information, and you go away again and try and work things out. So the time that we spent in the Europeans, right, was as an eye-opener for me, because like I said, I'm quite visual, right? So if you show me something, I'll figure it out. If you tell me something, I can more or less figure it out. And I think that as a fraternity, as a basketball fraternity, I think one of the main things we have to understand that there is a generational gap, and some of the information that you require and that someone can make sense of for you is actually here in Great Britain. You don't need to go abroad, because some of the experiences of the coaches of our generation and the book, because I have no idea what Pete's. I know Pete's extremely knowledgeable, man. The amount of times we used to watch them Pontel videos, Pete, right? We had no idea what those were, and we learned so much off that. But even to pick your brain, or they used to do this and that day, they used to do this and this day, and okay, how can that fit into this? That conversation, I think, is really it's not pieced together. I think if we could do that, that'd be great.
Just to make that point, actually, this is going to air after my podcast with Mick Bett, but we were discussing this the other day. First of all, there are no secrets in basketball, and especially in this day and age with what the technology. But secondly, as I keep telling everyone, the game is evolved in such a way, and there's definitely the style of play, pace and space is incredible, and we know that that's different. But if you go and watch EuroLeague, if you go and watch the NBA, they're still running flex actions. They're still running zipper cuts to get into some sort of ball screen action. There's all kinds of shuffle stagger is still in there somewhere along the lines. Maybe they space it differently, but all these actions that were 30 years old are still in the game. So it's not like, it is, everyone tells us, the game's completely different. No, it's not completely different. You still got to be able to set a screen at the right angle with the right timing and be able to read the screen and react and, all of the other stuff. You got to be able to get open, which a lot of our young players don't do in this day and age. Clive,
yeah, it is.
I'm conscious of time here as well.
It's all about, you look at players now, and it's all about the skill level, not the knowledge. They all want to know. They all want to know the odd move. They all want to know, the Kevin Durant move, right? But I'm like going, how he got to that? Do you know how he got that done? Do you understand the game itself? Why are you shooting a 3-point shot when you could have, gone to the basket and got a foul? And I just think it's all skill level and not developed. They don't understand the game, and it should be the other way. Yeah.
Clive, sorry, I got a session. I run a session. I run that community sessions, and I see these kids been launching them 3-pointers, right? And it drives me nuts. So we have a rule now, right? You have a rule. If you play and you shoot a 3-pointer and it airballs or it hits a brick, right? Your team's off. Gone. That's it, right? And you still see the kids shoot it.
They don't
and they look at each other.
Game.
No, and they look at the time like, I should have made that. And like, it's crazy.
The the biggest problem of all is that, and I'm changing completely a subject, is that, you know, I'm starting to look at this super high level analytics, and, you know, some of, you know, the analytics tell you, you know, come down and take these pull up threes. You know, they're like, you know, Utah changed their whole philosophy this year, you know, based on some of these super high level analytic people saying, yeah, actually, you know, the transition 2-on-1, it would have been better if he pulled up and the other guys crashing the boards and maybe able to get a tip out if it's a miss. You know, 3 is better than 2. You know, it's crazy. Anyway, Clive, let's just quickly just finish this one off, this subject. Birmingham coaching, you know, you've been there. Obviously, Pete has been as well. Enough sharing, enough like talking to each other, enough like you know, explaining some of the things that you're doing on the floor or the drills. Is that happening? Should there be more coaches meetings?
I think there is. I mean, I talk to people, you know, we'll sit and talk to Pete. Dougie's forever sending me information, and he's so I'm serious. He's like, I've got, you know, he'll tell me, you know, this is how Australia do it. This is how, and it's a big, you know, I'm like that. Wow. And the thing is, he reads it all too. I'm like, how the hell does Dougie get this all? And it's all great stuff, and you know, and whatever. If Dougie has something that's working, Doug is the first one to come, you know, call me up. Clive, you need to have a look at this. You need to see this, you know. And
that's your generation, though, Clive. That's someone who grew up.
True.
So is one of the younger coaches, you know, from argument's sake, from Pete's club.
They're frightened because they think, well, if I tell him this, he'll come and use it against me. I'm like going, as you said, back there's no like kind of magic dust that, you know, that can sprinkle on. Basketball's the same. You know, it's got a ball, 2 hoops. It's now down to you or your knowledge of the coach and how you play the game. You know, I'll tell you what play. I mean, Tony Dorsey used to do this to us all the time. Tony used to say, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. You do not stop me.
You got to stop it. Yeah.
Dribble the ball 2 times. I'm going to spin. I'm going to fake it twice. And, you know, he'd tell us, and he used to score. And I was like, damn. And that showed us like, it's not about, you know, oh, well, I'm not going to show somebody what, you know, what we're doing. You know, I played Dougie when we played down in Dudley, and we ran a play, and Dougie goes, yo, you killed us with that play. You better show. I'm like, yo, I'll show you that play. I'm no problem. Remember, he's like, how you killing him? You know, and I'm like, I want to show him. You know, I want to, you know, if someone wants something that I'm using, it makes me feel good. I just think a lot of youngsters now or people coming up think it's mine. I can't show it. I don't want no one to know it. I wish I could, you know, if someone puts it on Facebook, they want to delete it off there so no one else can see it. That kind of mentality, like, it's not that wins it. It's your knowledge of the game. It's your understanding of the game.
Okay, rapid fire, very rapid fire. So you got to do this as quickly as possible. Clive, favorite basketball drill that either you have run or you run all the time?
I got this off Pete, and he loves it, and he's got to be 11-man fast break. I just think you get so much stuff out of it, because remember Pete saying, smart this, I love 11-man fast break. So yeah, 11-man fast break for me.
Pete?
Can't repeat that, can it?
Sorry, Pete.
No worries. It's fluffy donkeys. Fluffy donkeys used to be called, and I might have got this from you, Tony, used to be called headhunter. But whilst coaching at Wolverhampton female team, they wouldn't go with headhunter. They wanted to change the name. And so it got to fluffy donkeys. Quite simply, it's full court 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, whatever you call, and it's a real good mix of whatever you want to put into it. You choose your own emphases, of course. So I'll stick with fluffy donkeys if that's all right.
Simon,
probably cutthroat. So cutthroat 3-on-3, 4-on-4, but effectively whatever. You know, you can work on that, whether it's pick and roll or whatever, or a defensive emphasis. If they're not doing it, get off, get the next team on. So it's quite a cutthroat drill in that sense, but it makes people perform. So the outcome isn't necessarily when people score or whatever. It's about whether you're emphasising the stuff that's in the drill, because it's the emphasis that could change any session. So
how is that not in our syllabus, by the way? How is that as a teaching tool not in our syllabus? I don't understand that. Dougie.
He took the words out of my mouth. Cutthroat.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Mark Dunning showed me that, I was like, I'm sold. I'm sold. I use it at every level, and I use it with the kiddies. I use it with the pros. It just, for me, it just absolutely works. That and another drill I used to run called recognition, where you have the 5 on the baseline and 5 on the free-throw line, and you have to touch the baseline and then go that one and then change it all up. Those 2 drills I love. But cutthroat, number 1. I had it written down when you sent the thing through. Straight thing came down. Cutthroat. That's it.
We use it we use that in the wheelchair game as well. So
Thank Mark Dunning. God bless you, mate. I love that drill.
Okay. Clive, favorite all-time basketball coach?
Gotta be Nick Nurse.
We don't have to say people like Greg Popovich when you be coached by Nick Nurse.
No, Nick. I mean, yeah. As I said, he made basketball fun. He's one of the coaches, that actually trying to get me to shoot the ball where everybody else rebound. He's like, and you will shoot the ball, and then we practice so many times of shooting. So,
Dougie.
What, played under or just in general?
No, in general. Can be anyone.
Played under Tony Hansen, because he was what you say is a play coach. He used to say like, they told me you could play. They told me you could shoot. They told me, so he used to really fire up to ready to play that way. But from a distance watching, Ettore Messina, love him. I watch his stuff every chance I get. Yeah, love him.
Okay, Simon.
Yeah, I guess my idol and my coach, my dad. So still is and always will be my dad, I guess.
That's awesome. Pete?
I don't know that I've got one favourite, to be truthful. I've taken stuff from all over the place. I quite like what Pitino does and the way he approaches that, but some of his products in Donovan, I quite like what he does as well. So there's a whole range of them. And these days you've got that breed of your Steve Kerrs and your Brad Stevens. The modern thinking coaches, and I like their approaches as well. So I can't go for one really. I just like to have a spread of them, as I've always been doing anyway.
Simon, your go-to or favorite saying that the players hear weekly?
I'll go to the one I use now with the GB Wings team. I don't know where I heard it. I think it was probably driving home on a radio talk show or whatever, but don't let great get in the way of good. And we use that too many times players turn down shots thinking they're going to get a better shot, and actually, by doing that, you're avoiding the good shots or the good decisions. So yeah, don't let great get in the way of good.
Clive?
There's 2 that I use. I mean, one I got off X, and it was each one teach one.
Teach one.
And I use it a lot in the Dean Blake has taken it, and I'm like, but I always, mine now is, the mistakes are mine, and I tell the kids, I'm the one that's coaching you. So if you get it wrong, it's my fault. Just keep playing. So the mistakes are mine. But once you get it done, the mistakes are yours, so you own them after, once I've shown you what to do and you've done it in the game, you can't blame me anymore.
That's awesome, Clive. I love that. Pete?
It's a real simple one. I'm into the questions these days, so it's quite simply, what do you think? Whoever that might be.
Question of style. Dougie?
I get a lot of kids saying to me I'd like to achieve this. So a lot of times it doesn't actually work out for them. So my one that I use quite a bit, right, is if your work ethic doesn't match your ambition or your goal, either change your ambition or your goal or change your work ethic, because the 2 can't be one oversee the other, right? So that's the one that I like to use.
Okay, awesome. Guys, listen, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, and we haven't really even touched, about, what do you guys do on a daily basis? That does frustrate me a little bit and stuff. But I think that, I mean, and we also, we do respect the fact that there are so many other good coaches that we could have invited on. But, you've given us like the essence of, what has happened in Birmingham and what continuously can happen in Birmingham. I think it's a great basketball city. I know that all of you guys are going to continue to drive and, get better as coaches and also grow the game. And I appreciate you, coming on today, tonight, for giving up your time, because it really, I feel this is going to be a great listen to a lot of people. So I just want to thank you from Timeout.
No, man,
Thank
well, appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony, and good to see you all.
Yeah.
Yeah.